Welcome back to Tech and Talk. Endpoint filters is another awesome feature in minimal APIs. How we can implement that, let's find out. Before that, I will start with a get endpoint and let me copy paste existing get endpoint. Let's say I use that one. I will copy it and I will modify it here. I already have added a region. So this region will contain all the endpoints with filters. I can say it filters. Here I can put my name and I can use name here. All right, this is an endpoint slash filters and it takes a name as a parameter. All right, so and then what are the filters? For the filter one, we already have a method which is called AddEndpointFilter, and this method takes two parameters, invocation context and the pointer to the next handler. And from within that, let's implement the basic filter without any code inside it. All right. So this is a now we have implemented a filter on that endpoint, right? This is how we can add filters against those endpoints in minimal API. And this is not doing anything. This is just passing requests back to the actual endpoint handler. We haven't added any extra logic inside it for now because we want to explore few use cases. Why filters are important? Because we need them when we want to run code before and after the endpoint. This is first thing. Second is if we want to inspect the parameters that are getting passed to the endpoint in overcase, this is name parameter, right? Let's write those scenarios here. First thing we discussed was running code before and after endpoint handler, and the second point was inspect and process modify the parameters. These are the two use cases, and apart from that, if we want to validate the request parameters like which can fall into this category, if we have passed the valid username, we can say that the values of those parameters, we can check those as well. And maybe if we want to log any information like when request was received, what the parameters and what was the response, we can do that as well. And apart from that, we can check any headers inside those filters as well, right? So we can log information, we can verify headers and no, so on and so forth. So these are some basic few examples. We can start with the first one. If we want to run some code before and after the endpoint, we can do that. So for that one, we can write any code here. Like if we want to, let's say in the second point, we want to process or we want to inspect the parameter. What we can do is for username is equal to invocation context dot get argument, and this argument we know that this is a type of string, so we need to pass string here, and we will be getting the first one from that list, right? So this will give us the name parameter, and we can check on the basis of that name. Let's say this endpoint is only allowed to username with Usman. If username not equals to Usman, then we need to return something other than 200. We can say return results dot problem. We can return a problem object which takes at least string. You are not allowed to this endpoint like this. All right. Apart from that, we can also pass few other properties like statuses code, title, or anything else. So let's say we want to use the status code dot. I will use something like 400 something. Let's say 401 unauthorized. Makes sense. All right. Now it's time to call that endpoint. So let me first build the application. Let me rebuild the application and go to again endpoints.http, and here I will be picking a sample call from here, and I will use it filters, and let's say I pass that one to Usman. All right. And if I click on this one, I will get 200 and hi Usman, welcome to the minimal APIs. If I pass anything other than Usman, I will get unauthorized. You can see that the status is 41, unauthorized is the title, and we have that detail message as well. This is how we can use endpoint filters to double check the parameters. We can take decisions against those logics, and we can even log that information. Whatever we can do with the request, we can do or put that logic here. Another point was we can also access the headers from within those endpoint filters. For that one, we can do invocation context dot http context dot request dot headers like this dot first order of all, let's say we want to find one with the name the same we have used previously, test. All right, we can say if there is a header with the name of text and it has the value equal to small, can put that inside our if statement. And again, this should be not, and we can use the same. Let's say we can return the same response. Not allowed to this endpoint must have a header. All right, let me run the application and let's find out how it works now. I'll go back to that endpoint. Previously, we have passed some header as well, so we can use same example here, and we can say then the value of header is small now. All right, so if I click on this one, I'm still getting the previous error. If I use the sman in the endpoint parameter and click the request, I'm getting the 200 response. And if I change the value of test header and then try, I will get another response must have a header, right? So this is how we can add our logic inside endpoint filter. Another awesome thing is we can even separate our logics inside multiple endpoint filters. We can do that as well. All right, and in that endpoint, I will be only calling the header logic, right? And the response will be the same. Now, two separate filters have their own separate logics. So it's much easy to manage logic and the context of our endpoint filters. All right, let me rerun the application and check the logic now. It's running fine, and if I click now, I'm getting error. And if I change, I'm getting normal response. If I change the parameter, I'm getting the previous error, which was 41 unauthorized. All right, so this is how we can add multiple endpoint filters against our minimal API endpoints. As we have seen that we can process the parameters as well just by using this type of get argument method. Now let's take the example of HTTP post endpoint. In that case, what will happen? Let me reuse this logic and create another endpoint, and I can call it map post like this. And instead of this one, I am expecting the model now user. All right, and here inside the argument, now that will be the of user type, and we can say user dot name not equal to small, and everything else will be the same. And let's go, and before that, let me run the application and go back to my endpoints.http, and here I will use existing logic, and I will replicate that one, and here that will be filters. Now we are passing the header as well, and we need to pass the model as well like this. All right, all set. Let me click on the post endpoint. We are still getting that error because the header is not right. What I can do is I can pass Osman as a header here on that. We are still getting an error, and why is that so? Because I haven't passed the name Osman here as well. And if I click now, I will get again, hi Osman, welcome to the minimal APIs. So everything is fine. So this is how we can implement those endpoint filters to process and access and validate our parameters. We can add logs, logic here. We can process and we can customize the response as we did here. We can just return from here just based on the logic inside our filters, and the endpoint will not be called. And yeah, so that was all for this video. In case of any questions how we can use endpoint filters, why, and what are the different use cases, if you have a specific use case, do let me know, do ask in the comment, and I will respond on that. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe this channel. See you in the next video.